The first step always has to be acceptance and accountability. I was the reason that I was the way that I was. I genuinely just put my sole focus on I want to feel better. I want to look in the mirror and look at myself and say, I'm actually really proud of how you showed up. Running my first 5 kilometers without stopping was always going to be such a big moment in comparison to stepping on the scales and seeing that I had lost £10. Yeah, okay, that was incredible to see a number, but it was that idea of doing things that I had never done before and doing things that I deemed that I was never going to be able to do. My name is Therese. I am an online health fitness coach, primarily specializing in fat loss. And I basically got into this whole world, I would say, about 2.5 to 3 years ago when I started my own fitness journey. And who I am, I guess, and what I do is helping people on their journey and helping people to see that there is a different way of living through health and fitness and the habits that you have. And yeah, I guess on a day-to-day basis, that's what I spend my time doing. So that's me in a nutshell. I went on my own journey and now I help others to do the same.
So let's go back 2.5 years and then leapfrog back a little bit more, because I feel like obviously that's where things changed for you in terms of like your career trajectory and your path and kind of what you do now. Who were you before that? Before that 2.5 years ago?
I was I was just someone that was very lost, I would say, in a lot of ways. I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. I think it's that class of case of, you're in your early 20s and you're like, What am I doing? Where am I going?" And with that, then on top of all of that stresses of what am I going to do with my career? What am I going to do with my life? I also had the aspect of my health that was beginning to become very worrying for me. And I obviously share my journey very openly online. That at one point in my life, I was 21 years old and I weighed 240 pounds. And it was getting to a point where like everyday activities were becoming a struggle for me, walking up flights of stairs, I was getting out of breath. I didn't really want to do anything. I had no energy. My hair was falling out and thinning. My skin was always broke out. And I think I just had completely lost full sense of who I was. And I guess when you say who was I at that point, I don't know who I was at that point. I was completely lost within so many aspects of my life. And I guess just being in that dark place, I either had to move forward or continue sitting in it. And I guess I took the step to move forward and try and change something in my life.
And I guess looking back now, it gives you kind of space to reflect, because in those moments, you were getting up on a day-to-day basis, and what you do now and what you, I mean, portray as your message is kind of like those good decisions every day, right? But at that point, it was kind of, I'm not going to say bad decisions, but it was decisions that led to kind of a negative mindset and led to your health deteriorating on a day-to-day basis. Like, looking back and reflecting on those decisions that you did make on a day-to-day basis and kind of those things that did lead to more and more negativity, can you put a finger on why you did that, or was it kind of just the cycle that you were in?
I think part of it was the cycle that I was in. So it's that idea of, the thoughts that you think become your reality almost. And I say this all the time. When you don't genuinely care about yourself and you don't believe that you're worthy of a better life, that's what you believe to be true. So in my mind, I guess the way I acted reflected how I felt about myself at the time. I didn't believe that I was worthy of more. I didn't believe that I could be someone that was healthy. I didn't believe that I could have, all of these wonderful things in my life. I didn't fully believe that I was worthy of that. And a lot of my habits and behaviors stemmed from growing up overweight and always having that idea in my head that I was lesser because of the way that I looked. And the way that I was treated then led into, issues with my self confidence, my self esteem, how I viewed myself, but how wrapped up I was and how others viewed me. And I guess in a sense, I led into habits and behaviors then that numbed the pain and the feeling for now, but left me with something worse a little bit later on. And it's that idea of that instant gratification. And, let me try and take away the pain right now, but I'm only left with it 10 times more the day after or the week after. But it's that idea of the cycle then just continued to repeat itself because I would drink alcohol or eat food to numb the pain, and then I would come back out of that, the pain would go away, and I would be left with the same pain again. So to get rid of it, I would do the same things, and I get caught in this loop essentially. It's that cycle, I guess, that you are stuck in, and you know that you need to do something different, but getting yourself out of that cycle was for me one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do for myself. So I guess it was a mix of both. It was a cycle, but it was also years of beliefs that I had about myself and just, I guess, not believing at the time that I was worthy of the things that I wanted to achieve.
It almost, like the way you're describing it there, it almost feels like that cycle was kind of like an addiction, right? Like you get up every day and you do the same thing every day, and that's even though you kind of know that it's bad for you. Like reflecting on it, does it almost feel like that?
Well, yeah, I think when you come out of it, it's that saying of insanity is the idea of, doing the same thing but expecting different results. I wanted the thing, you know what I mean? I thought about it all the time. I wanted the healthier body, the healthier mind. I wanted to wake up and feel, that I had purpose, but yet I continued to do the same thing. And I find that so interesting when I did come out of my journey and I eventually started, seeing maybe progress with my body and my mind that as human beings, we can want the thing so badly, but then to actually go and do it is a completely different story. And it's that idea of a continuing cycle of self-sabotage. And you're making yourself almost feel more crazy because you're like, well, I want this thing so badly, but I continue to get in my own way and do the same thing. And it is that idea, yeah. You it's that idea of insanity. You're continuing to do the same thing but expecting different results. And it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and it I think that idea of doing the same thing over and over again can either be obviously so negative as it was in that time of your life or now so positive, right? And I think it's it's reframing consistency, because consistency is one of those words that I think inherently people think of as like a positive thing. Like if you do something consistently, you'll get to a place you want to be. But it's exactly the same the other way, isn't it? Like if you consistently do the wrong thing, you're gonna either continue to be where you are or
Yeah.
regress.
Absolutely, 100%. And I always say to my clients, especially, individuals that will say, I really struggle with consistency. And I'm like, nobody struggles with consistency because we consistently do things on a day-to-day basis. So we don't actually struggle with consistency because I consistently showed up at one point in my life doing the same habits and behaviors over and over and over again. I was consistently doing things that deteriorated my health and my mindset. And the shoe can go on the other foot. Now I can consistently show up and do things that better my mindset and my habits. So no one actually struggles with being consistent. It's you're just struggling with what you're being consistent with. And like you just said there, one can, benefit yourself, your growth and your development. The other can lead to it deteriorating and, almost a negative side. So it's not actually consistency that we struggle with. I believe everybody is consistent in what they do each day. It's what you're being consistent in.
I've never actually thought of it like that, like because yeah, you do hear people talk about consistency and it's kind of a bit of a buzzword, right? Everybody talks about consistency and as I say, most of the time in kind of that positive affirmation of it. Um, but the idea of everybody kind of understanding consistency because we're all constantly being consistent is actually pretty interesting because we all get up every day. We all, well, most of us go to work every day. We do this, we do that, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a super interesting idea, and it's reframing that then to make sure that people do see it as a positive rather than making those negative decisions on a daily. And I guess for you, somebody that's really been through the whole journey, right? And I'm sure there've been progressions and regressions, and I'm sure there still are progressions and regressions. That relatability to people's stories when you're now coaching them, do you think going through what you went through kind of helps you to be a better coach, a better trainer, a better person?
Yeah, absolutely. I always said now I would never change the way my story unfolded, and I would never want it to be any different than what it was, although it was hard at the time. And, you question why did my story have to be this way? Why did I have to go through this? Everything has, I believe that everything has a greater purpose, and my story and my journey, I needed to go through that for it to lead me to where I am now. And that's why I love to do what I do, because I'm not just helping people based off of, what I think they're going through. I fully know what you're going through, and that's where my relatability comes with the people that I do help. And even just, maybe if I'm not coaching you, but if you can come across my page on social media, hopefully you can feel seen and heard in some way, or I can help you in some way by the content that I put out there. I truly believe that I needed to go through what I went through because it was leading me to a greater cause, which is where I am now. So absolutely, I think people can get mixed up and, question why is this being placed in my way, and why am I going through these hard times, and why is this happening to me? It's like life is always going to happen and things are always going to happen, but it's how you choose to have that perspective. And the thing at the time that I thought was the worst thing that could possibly happen in my life has actually led me to, the best possible thing, and outcome that it could have happened for me, because that hardship that I went through led me to something so much greater afterwards. So I guess it's how you choose to view those things. And yeah, I always said that I would never change my journey, because I love how it unfolded and I love everything that it taught me about myself and how much it changed and impacted my life, but now how I can also help to do the same for others.
You also have this USP, right? This unique selling point in the space because you've walked the walk. And we're all um we all understand kind of like content creation and like, you know, doing things to help the algorithm and all that sort of thing. And I think people are very clued up on that now, not only creators, but people that view and digest content. But like when you're talking about these things, it's like, oh no, this is actually true. I can actually say this because I've actually been there and done it.
Yeah, for sure. I think and I think that's what I really appreciate about it. That I, like you said, it is coming from a place of, I can really empathize with people because I do understand, and I know that for a lot of people it's not just as easy as just change your diet and start going to the gym. For a lot of people, and I think that's why I really enjoy what I do, because there's layers to this. There's years of habits, behaviors, mindsets that individuals have to break, and it's not just a simple case of do this and do that and you'll be better. It can take months, if not years, for individuals to see change. But being on that journey and still being on that journey, I always say this, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but it's accepting that we're always going to be trying to strive and progress for more. And if I can use my story to help others along the way, then that's a win-win for me.
When and I'm sure you've heard this loads, when people say, "Oh, it's just easy, isn't it? Like, just eat less and exercise more. Like, it's just easy." When you said the word empathy then, I'm like, that's what makes you so special and your journey so special. It's because you kinda understand that empathetic part of what you actually have to do. It's not just eat less, exercise more, because there's so much emotion involved to even take the step to even start to make that decision and go for that walk or go to the gym or switch up your diet. It's everything you've built up to that point, you kind of have to break down to get back to the point where you need to start again. It's not just eat less, exercise more, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's a statement to make. And I think, again, going back to why I like to even be on social media, is hopefully to be that refreshing side that individuals like myself may need. I was completely that individual that was overwhelmed by the fitness space. That classic case of like, I'm gonna go to the gym and like everybody's gonna be looking at me and being like, she doesn't need to be here, or why is she here? Um, and it was that idea of not knowing what to do. Like, you don't know where to turn, and someone to just say, eat less, move more, but eat less of what, and how should I move more? And you know, it's it's easy to get annoyed at yourself when you're seeing individuals on social media that have lived and, breathed this lifestyle from when they were really, really young. And I think that's incredible for some people. I'll never take away from coaches that have been in shape and that are healthy and that really, have embodied that from a young age. But there are also individuals that come to this journey a lot later in life, like myself, and they are learning for the very first time around. And we have had different experiences in regards to how we emotionally deal with things. You know, a big thing for me was I turned to food, and really leaned in on using food as a mechanism for how I was feeling. And I knew then on my journey, it wasn't just going to be a case of eating less. I needed to learn about food. I needed to understand food. I needed to understand nutrition. I needed to understand, what portion sizes was, how to control my urges, my cravings, how to work through that. Why am I binging? Why do I feel the need? There were so many layers to unpack. And I think that's why I like to hold that space for individuals, that for some people it will just be a simple case of we got to eat less, we got to move more, okay, go for it. But for some people it is much more complex, especially when you have ongoing and years of repeated habits and behaviors that just can't be broken overnight. So yeah, it's not just a one size fits all in fitness. That's always what I say. And this journey, it's not just a one size fits all for sure.
How did you go about breaking down those habits then? Those quote unquote bad habits that you had and you'd built up over the years? Because we've kind of spoken about, right, that pre 2.5 year ago you, but I guess something must have clicked to kind of make that change and begin those processes to get to where you are now.
I think the first step always has to be acceptance and accountability. I think that's one thing that people may leave out or lack. You actually need to sit with yourself. And I think that's a serious conversation that I had with myself, whether that be, in your head or in a journal. I had to fully accept that I was the reason that I was the way that I was. It was me. You know, yes, there can be, external factors and, peer pressure and individuals that can, encourage you to do certain things or make certain decisions. But at the end of the day, I was the one that was continuing to make decisions that were detrimental to my health. I was the one continuing to put myself in a situation where I felt, fatigued and tired, and my mindset wasn't great. I was the one that was continuing to make those decisions. And whenever I could step away from the idea that, this is everybody else's fault and actually accept that it was me, that was, I guess, a turning point in my head, because I realized that, well, if I want to make this change, no one's actually coming to do it for me. This is going to be, my journey. It's going to be me with me. And I think my first step was accepting. And then I guess leading off of that, I wouldn't say there's, a five step series to actually start breaking your habits, but I think it's understanding. And I think when this mindset can click, that it's not going to be perfect and you're not going to get it right straight away, but as long as you're trying and you're showing up and you're measuring your progress in some way, shape, or form, that you will start to see changes shift. And I think that's where most individuals will feel on their fitness journey or their fat loss journey, whatever it may be. And I see it time and time again, is that we come into this thing thinking, okay, I've woke up now and my life's about to change and I'm changing everything about my life. You do it for a couple of days and then it slips again and you're like, oh, I'm right back to where I started and I can't stick to this. And this is where the self-sabotage come in. I think I fully accepted that, well, no matter what happens, no matter if I have a really bad day, no matter if I, don't stick to my calories or if I don't get that walk in, I'm just going to be consistent, because anything is better than what I'm doing right now. Anything has to be better than the way I am right now. And when I remove that pressure of I need to weigh a certain weight or I need to look a certain way, I genuinely just put my sole focus on I want to feel better. I want to look in the mirror and look at myself and say, I'm actually really proud of how you showed up. Or I want to feel like I've got more energy. I want to feel like I feel good with the foods that I'm eating. I think the first steps of my journey was removing the pressure that we can see on social media, that we can get from other people. And before I started putting metrics on anything, before I started focusing on numbers, before I started focusing on being absolutely perfect and meticulous with every little thing, I just said, I'm about to go on a journey and it doesn't matter how long this takes, because if I want this to be my life, which it needed to be a lifestyle, then I'm willing to be consistent with that and take every day as it comes. People get so caught up in, I need to do this right, and if I do this wrong, it doesn't work, and back and forward. If you can just focus on, again, going into that word of consistency, consistently doing the things that make you feel better on a day-to-day basis, then slowly but surely you're going to build those stepping stones. And when you start getting the grasp of things, when you start breaking habits, building new ones, then that's when you can maybe start putting a little bit bit more pressure on things in regards to, okay, well, I want to lose 5 kg, or, I want to run 10 kilometers for the first time. I think understanding yourself first, that was the biggest step for me. And I think that was different this time around with my journey. I took the time to learn about me. Why am I the way that I am? And that's not an easy thing to do. It's actually a really scary thing to do. And it's you're meeting yourself in the mirror and you're looking yourself and you have to accept that there's so many things I'm about to change, and there's so many, like, almost demons that I'm gonna be faced with here because I have been neglecting parts of myself for so long. But the I think the biggest thing for me that was shifting those habits was getting to know me, getting to understand me, and realizing that it wasn't going to be perfect. It's still not perfect, almost 3 years in, but we're being consistent, I guess, as best we possibly can. And I would say that I've learned a lot along the way. So remove the pressure of numbers and external things and just focus in on your own lane. That's what I would say made things a lot different for me this time, was the idea that I wanted to get to know me and why I was the way that I was.
You said this time a couple of times then, like, this is obviously something that you've tried to do before and then have gone back to those negative habits, those consistently bad decisions. And I think we've kind of almost covered like why this time around was different. I think acceptance and feeling, and I definitely want to talk about feeling in a second, but like those times where you tried and it didn't work, were they must have been so difficult then to look back at yourself and be like, "Oh God, like I've got to start this whole journey again."
Yeah, it's exhausting. I think I think at least every individual that I work with, I can have this conversation with. It's exhausting to grow up in a space that is, it's that idea of diet culture, right? And we're bombarded with how we should look and what we should do, and cut your carbs, and, don't eat this and don't eat that. And it's exhausting that when you try every single thing and nothing seems to ever work or nothing ever seems to stick, and you get frustrated and you get exhausted with the idea of, like, is this going to be how it's supposed to be for the rest of my life? And I remember feeling so frustrated. I remember feeling I was sad and I was angry and I would cry and I'd be like, why can't it just be easy for me the way that it is for other people? And why am I constantly going back and forth? And I would get so frustrated with myself that I couldn't be consistent with the things that I wanted to be consistent with. And I actually spoke about this last week on my socials, was that the reason that a lot of the time we can't be consistent is because we're doing things that are completely unaligned with who we are and the life that we have. That person that you may see on social media, you actually can't do the same things as them because you live a completely different life. You're putting pressure on yourself to do things that they can't do. It's easy for me to sit here and say, go to the gym 5 times a week and do X, Y, and Z. I'm 24. I have no commitments other than to look after myself, but I have to have empathy to those individuals that have got kids, that have got jobs, that there's multiple people relying on them. They're looking after, their mum or their dad or a family member. You have to empathize with the fact that your journey is going to be yours, and always leaning in on the fact of that. But I think that's why people get frustrated. And that's why I got frustrated so many times, because it was back and forward and back and forward and back and forward. When this time around, as I said, was different because I accepted, well, hang on, I'm a different individual. I've got different priorities. I have a different life, and I need to find now what works for me. And I guess leading off of that, a big part of it was actually getting the right education, not just following what you see in the magazines or what you see on social media. It was actually getting the evidence of, how does this actually work? And hang on a minute, let me educate myself for the things that I need to actually know to get me to where I want to be.
When you started making those positive changes and, that feeling, because I love the way that you kind of articulated that when you were talking about like focusing on feeling rather than a number or a metric, like, because that at the end of the day is the biggest thing that we should all focus on. We're all feeling our body a lot more than we're looking at a number or a metric. Like, what's standing on the scales? 30 seconds at the start of the day, maybe, but like you're in your body for 24 hours of the day. Um, when you did start to, quote, feel better, like when you did get that clarity that, walking up the stairs without being out of breath just in the first instance, like you said before, like what was that like when you kind of realized, oh, like I can feel change. I'm not only seeing it, but I can actually feel it.
I was so excited. Like,
Yeah.
genuinely, it was that feeling of like a little butterfly in my stomach, and it was always the small things that meant the most, and it was never, you know, it was running my first 5 kilometers without stopping was always gonna be such a big moment in comparison to stepping on the scales and seeing that I had lost 10 pound. Yeah, okay, that was incredible to see a number, but it was that idea of doing things that I had never done before and doing things that I deemed that I was never going to be able to do. It was always those things. And the moments along my journey that have meant the most have got nothing to do with numbers at all. It's always been a feeling. It's the hard work that I've put into something. It's, that idea of showing up when I didn't feel like showing up, but I did it anywhere. And afterwards I felt incredible. I always use this example. I was training for my first half marathon and I did my last long run and it was a 19-kilometer run, but that run felt so much better than the actual half marathon itself because that run was the journey. That run was the hard work. It was the fact that I realized that my body carried me for 2 hours when, 2.5 years ago, like we said, I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without getting out of breath. It was never anything really to do with numbers. It was more so a moment, and I think it's the same for everybody. It's that moment when, you're maybe going out and you're getting ready for a dinner or a night out, and you look at yourself and you're like, wow, I really like who I'm seeing, like, looking back at me. Or it's like for me, it was my hair growing back and my skin finally clearing up. And again, I can't really measure that, but it's how I feel when I look at myself. So yes, the data is important as always. I'm a coach. I'm never going to disregard that. The data is always important and what we measure gets improved and it allows us to see our progress in so many areas. But I also never want people to forget that a feeling and how you feel on a day-to-day basis, your mind, your body, and how you show up as a person, that will, for me anyway, nothing will ever top that, and numbers will never ever top that. And I just remember feeling so excited because it was feelings that kept me motivated to continue going. I always said is I didn't weigh myself or anything like that there for a first part of my journey. I didn't care about a number, nothing like that there. I just said I'm gonna try and feel better. And that was so freeing because I was just showing up every day, going to the gym, looking after my food, learning a little bit more. And throughout that, I seen myself coming out of my shell. I had more energy, was less fatigued. I was just becoming a happier individual. And that for me, that was progress in itself.
Yeah, I love that because and the analogy that you gave there of like looking at yourself in the mirror before going out and thinking, "Oh yeah, like I'm pretty happy with this." Like imagine then going to the bathroom, picking up the scales, standing on the scales, seeing something you didn't want to see. You'd instantly be in that negative headspace again then, wouldn't you? But like if you're just which is a mad thing because that's just something that's kind of been inherently injected into us somehow, isn't it? That is the thing that matters. And it's always like, I need to be lighter, I need to be leaner, I need to be faster, I need to run further. It's like, whoa, like, how do you feel looking in that mirror? Not only before going on a night out, but like before going for a run, or the fact you're even going for a run. Like it's those things rather than the I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do the other. And again, going back to something you said about us all being individuals, there is no cookie cutter. This is a puzzle that we're all putting together, and every single person's puzzle is so different, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that analogy. Actually, everyone's puzzle is completely different because it is. We are all wired so differently, and I have worked with hundreds of individuals, each individual being completely different than the other, and something that will work for someone doesn't work for the other person, and that's okay. We'll find a different mechanism that works for you. And I think when you can accept that and remove the pressure and the control that you need to be like everybody else, or that excuse me, you need to be like the next best person that you're seeing on Instagram. When you remove that, that's when your progress will flourish because you're not trying to be everybody else, you're trying to be you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and the word individual, right? That's
Yeah.
that's it. It is. It's the word, right? Everybody is an individual. I often think, and I don't know how strange this is going to sound, but like you have those moments of clarity doing like going for a run or like even when you're working or you know I sometimes have it when you drive when I'm driving and I'm just thinking about stuff or thinking about life or whatever and then you look at everybody around you and you think everybody is looking through their own set of eyes. And I know that might sound a bit strange potentially to people that are listening, but it's like I feel all of these emotions and I feel all of these, you know, feelings about life and work and relationships and friendships, and every single person knows how overwhelming stuff can get from time to time. But I think it becomes a little bit more easy to understand when you think that everybody is feeling exactly the same thing, or everybody has got their own situation or feelings, or how they're trying to take that next step forward or not. So it's like that word again, which we've used quite a lot in this conversation, of acceptance, is so important as an individual, and also in the acceptance that everybody is different, right? Just everyone is on their own journey.
Absolutely. And I think even leading off of that, what you said, that everyone is feeling the same thing in some way, shape, or form, but maybe a little differently, but on a wider scale, we're all kind of feeling the same thing. And that's why it's so important to have community as well too on your journey, community of individuals that are like-minded, similar thinking, that aren't gonna, you know, try and bring you down and make you feel weird or bad about doing the things that you're doing. Those individuals that will lift you up, and those individuals that you can have a conversation with and say, you know, I am feeling this way. And there's something about someone just saying back to you, yeah, you know, I've felt that way too. It makes you feel more normal. So while you're on an individual journey for sure, there's something so powerful about leaning into the help and support of others and having that community there, that could also make a massive difference. So that yes, you're doing this alone, but you don't have to be lonely, if that's the right analogy. You are
Yeah.
doing this by yourself, but the aspect of community and finding that along your journey too can be the difference between, you know, if you go to the gym that day or you don't, because you know you're gonna meet, you know, that group or that friend. It can just make a massive difference as well too. And yeah, someone to confide in is fantastic.
And I'm sure you see that a lot in the comments on your socials, right? Because that's another element to you as a person, that kind of creator element, right? It's what you do, and you've been on this journey, and you are a coach, and you also have this part of your personality as well, or this part of your, I guess, work-life balance, work-life emotional balance. I always think sometimes when people say work-life balance, it's probably not enough, is it? Because there's like so many elements in there to try and balance.
Yeah.
What was that like when you started to see, you mentioned the word community, but these people in the comment sections, or, you know, in the following section, like this relatability, this community, this positive vibe, that's odd, isn't it? Like, it must feel odd.
Um, it was, and it still is very surreal for me. I guess I don't think I've ever fully got used to the fact that I was blessed with such an incredible, like, following and everything that it's took me to, and I don't even like to say following as such, because I believe that we are a community, and like that's a team of people that I have been blessed to be able to impact. And you know that the individuals, most of the individuals that do come to my page and the community that we build are just individuals that are looking to be motivated and inspired and, you know, learn something new. But I think for me, it always comes from a place of who I was, you know, almost 3 years ago now, that if that version of me were to see what I'm doing right now and see that thousands of people follow my journey and they you know, they like my advice and they feel inspired and motivated, she would genuinely look at me and be like, I'm confused. Like what is going on? So for me it is, and it still always has been. It's surreal to know that I've been put in the position that I've been put in, and I'm absolutely and forever eternally grateful for what it's brought to my life, and for every individual that interacts and that comments and that sends me messages. I can't say it enough that it genuinely every single day blows my mind. Um but like I said, I believe that I guess this was to happen. It was supposed to unfold this way. And now that I'm in that world, although some days it doesn't feel like it, or maybe I don't believe it myself, I really try and remind myself that there's a reason why I'm doing this, and you know, it's for that greater purpose. So I can't say that I've ever got used to it, and that it's ever normal, but it's something that I am extremely grateful for, and to be able to bring people together at events or walks and just meet new people through social media, that's definitely a positive of this journey that I've been on and what it's brought to my life. So Yeah, it's definitely surreal, and I always say this, I've got stopped on the street a couple of times, and I don't know how to react. I'm like, "Hello, hi." I almost put things out there, forgetting that people actually see them, do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But yeah, like I said, it's surreal, but, something that I'm very, very grateful for, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the individuals that, have supported me and that continue to do so.
I've got nowhere near the following that you've got, but like I can relate to the to people like talking to you and you forgetting the kind of what you've put out. I I'm on the radio as well, and like that's one of those things where when you say something on air, you're kind of just doing it because you understand kind of the medium and you're doing it in that way. And it's the same with socials, right? You're putting a message out there that you think is going to be inspiring or thoughtful or make people make motivate people, and you're not really thinking about the actual action of it doing that. Like all I'm thinking on the radio is like, is this a funny story? Is this going to make someone smile? Is it going to make people laugh? Or do I need to do this specific piece of content? And then when you meet somebody and they're like, oh, how's your dog? Like that was funny. And you're like, how do you know that? Like,
Yeah.
it's almost kind of weird, isn't it? It's like, have you been looking through my windows? Because I don't know how you know that. And you're like, oh yes, that's how. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is, and I think that's the thing as well with social media now. It's incredible because it's opened the door just for so many. I don't wanna say just, well, it is, it's everyday normal individuals.
Yeah.
Like, I think beforehand, it was a thing of the past where it was like, celebrities and all this kind of thing, and it's been such an amazing platform for individuals that are just normal everyday individuals that are, going to work, going to the gym, they can share their lives, and they can inspire and motivate individuals that are doing the exact same thing as them, and I think that's an incredible, thing that has came off of the back of it. But yeah, like you said there, sometimes you're like, "Hang on, how did you know this?" And then you're like, "Ah, I did. I put that out there for everybody to see."
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like it was just such a weird world we live in, isn't it now as well, where everything is so kind of connected. And I've spoken about this quite a bit on the podcast that everything is now so connected. It's almost like i- it's also new. So we're all kind of still dealing with how to work it, if that makes sense. And like, yes, you have those moments of interaction with those people that are part of part of the community, part of your journey online. But you were a real life person before your online kind of presence took hold as well. And I'm sure you're still bumping into people, from home that you were in school with or family and friends, and that they've seen the change in you, not only physically, but mentally as well, I'm sure. What's it like when you see people or see somebody that you haven't seen in 5 years, let's say, or like, what does your family think about this journey? Like, what is that kind of feeling towards it?
I think, I mean, I can't say that I've moved away from, home. I grew up
Yeah,
in Ireland, and I live in London now, so those interactions definitely don't happen as often as they probably would if I lived, at home. But I would say that it's always a positive interaction, it's always nice to hear that, someone might say, "I've been watching you," or, I see the change and it's incredible," and things like that there. And obviously the same with my family, of course. They knew what one version of me was like, and now they're meeting another. But I think that can also be hard for individuals to accept, and it's one thing that I speak about quite often, is that someone is getting to know the new version of you. You now have different boundaries. You now have different, you know, things that you're focusing on. You've got different priorities. There's a shift in not just how you look, but there's a shift in who I am. I didn't just change how I looked, I changed everything about myself because I had to. I had to change the way I think, I had to change the way I act, the boundaries that I had for myself. And I think sometimes that can also be hard for people to come to terms with, that you are no longer who you used to be. And yes, while you may have known one version of me, um, you may not fully know now this next version of me, and you might not understand it, and that's okay. And I think I always say this to like my clients and stuff like that there as well, that it's okay that if you're on your journey and people don't fully understand it, and they don't understand why you're doing it, and they might make comments, and they might not fully get behind it, but as long as you know why you're doing what you're doing and you're being true to you, then that's okay. And, there's people will be in your life for maybe seasons, and they come in and they go, but that's okay, because as you grow and develop and, become a different version of yourself, as if that's what you're trying to do, you'll meet people along the way that are in support of that. So um I can't say I've had any negative interactions, it's all been positive, but, you can tell though when, there's individuals, let's say from your past that, maybe just aren't quite as supportive as what you thought they would be, but that's okay. That's fine.
And it comes with acceptance as well, doesn't it? Like, if you're accepting that it's you're in total control of your journey, you also have that's not just accepting that you can make the positive change to get to a better place. That's also accepting that if somebody can't see that that's what you're doing, that you need to, you know, maybe it is a reevaluating of that friendship or relationship or whatever, because you are the person that's in control. And I think if you always come back to that element of acceptance, which you've spoken about very, very articulately on this, and like also like I know you said, I'm 24, I don't have any responsibilities necessarily when it comes to, kids and anything like that. But like you do speak about this sort of thing incredibly, like people use that phrase, you're wise beyond your years, right? I do feel like you kind of have that. Where where's that come from? Do you know where that's come from, or is it just you think the journey that's got you to this point?
I think for sure I get that a lot, that, I'm a little bit of ahead of, I seem older than what I am. But again, going back to, I probably did all the things that I wasn't supposed to do a little bit too young. So I'm 24 now, and I get excited to go to bed with my tea, shall we say. So I
Let's
guess
go. I'm
that
dead.
that could that could maybe lead into it, but I definitely do think that, because of the individuals that I get to work with, it has broadened my mindset and my understanding and my empathy to individuals, that it is that you have to have that understanding that I'm in a completely different position than, a client that I may have that is a full-time working mom that has 3 kids, that they're, trying to manage a household, kids and themselves, that we have to be open, and like you said, that word acceptance, to know that we are completely different individuals. And I think a big part of it as well just comes down to the person that I want to be, and how I want to show up. I I really want to be that individual that, like, can hear your story and can help you and can resonate with you, but also give you that space, because it's not done enough in this day and age. I don't think, anyway, personally for me, because you know people aren't fully grasping the idea that we are just normal individuals out here needing a little bit of extra help and support. And, not everybody wants to be an elite athlete and have a six pack and, look, incredibly toned and ripped all the time. Like, some people don't want that. And I want to be that space for those individuals that don't want that. I'm just trying to be out here doing things that, you maybe have never done before, and helping you feel good and look good while you're doing it. So yeah, I think maybe that's potentially where that comes from. And I would say that I probably, yeah, really devoted myself the last 3 years to just my, not just my physical growth, but my mental and my emotional growth, to know that we are all just human beings at the end of the day, and some acceptance and self-respect and care for individuals can go a long way.
And
It
what a
takes nothing to be kind. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And what a privilege that is as well, right? Like I kind of feel that too with having the ability to meet so many people and speak to so many people and have conversations that, selfishly nobody else gets to have. Like to sit down with you for nearly an hour and just chat. It's like, when would we have done this? It's so, and so I take little bits from every conversation. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but like the way you're talking about clients and individuals that you coach, I've actually never heard somebody talk about it like you have in that sort of sense. Like I almost get a little bit from every single one of these people. So then again, it's not just talking about communities, actually, you're kind of the embodiment of that community because you are actually listening to not only their values, but their stories and everything else about them. And each little part of them is becoming part of you.
Yeah. For sure. I think that's the thing as well. That I always say this in coaching, that the reason that we're all here together is because in some way, shape, or form, we see something in you or in me that we see in ourselves, and that's what kind of brings us together. And that's why there's no space for judgment, or because I've been doing this longer than you, I'm better and I'm better than this. There's none of that. We're all simply just individuals that are on a journey of betterment, and we're all here to help each other. And I think that can really go a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And look, we'll finish with this because I think your story is, I mean, it's incredibly inspiring. I'm sure loads of people are going to be listening to it right now and feeling inspired. But I'm sure there are also a lot of people that are listening to this, maybe who have, um, I don't want to use the word failed, but have started a journey and it hasn't worked out for one reason or another. It's not a failure. It's just part of where they've got to in their storyline. What would you say, not to somebody that hasn't started yet, but to somebody that is in that space, that kind of negative headspace and mindset of trying it not working, of trying it not working, it trying it not working? What would you say to that person?
So many things. So much. Give me an hour with them. Um, it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but I think I would definitely say that you have to keep trying, but you also have to make the conscious effort to find the thing that works for you. It's easy to be like, oh, just keep trying and just keep showing up. But if you're continuing to do things that are making you start and stop and start and stop, you haven't found the thing that works for you. You need to lean into finding the thing that is going to work for you. And if that means investing in yourself, in a good coach, in a personal trainer, in a mindset coach, lead into that investment. I think people are afraid to invest in themselves. And like I was before, I was afraid to invest in myself, but I would invest in so many other things that were, deteriorating my health. It's like leading into the idea that it's never a bad day to start again. It's never a bad day to start again. And every day is an opportunity for you to show up a little bit differently than what you did the day before. And I know that it can be hard, and I know that it's challenging, and I know how exhausting it can be and how frustrated you can feel. But if you continue to just if you throw your hands up and throw the towel in and say that it's not going to work, well then you're guaranteed that you're never going to reach that finish line. You can only fail whenever you quit. And as long as you are not giving it, you're not throwing in that towel just yet, you're not done yet. And I always say that if you are still in the race, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to finish, but you're going to get there in the end. So I think as long as you don't fully throw that towel in and say that you're done and you're not going to try, you're on the right path, and just don't give up, because at least when you give up, you're guaranteed that it's never going to happen. Do you know what I mean? You've bowed down and you said, oh well, whatever happens, happens. Don't allow yourself to lose that control, and do not ever give up the hope. I'm just trying to, whoever's listening to this right now that might need it, do not give up hope that change is possible for you in some way, shape, or form, or that you can get the things that you want to get. I'm a big believer in, with the right help, support, mindset, work ethic, all of that kind of stuff, you can get anything that you desire in this life. It may not be easy, and it's never going to be easy, but it is simple in regards to the process itself is simple. It's just how you choose to continue showing up to that. But yeah, never give up that hope, and never ever bow down and throw the towel in, because it's not worth it.